Everyone froze inside the airport when a police dog suddenly began barking desperately at a pregnant woman. She took an uneasy step back, one hand protectively cradling her belly, trembling as if she had no idea what was happening. "Please, sir." "Make him stop," she pleaded, looking around in panic. But the police dog refused to back down. He growled low, his muscles tense, his eyes locked onto the pregnant woman, like she was hiding something dangerous. Passengers whispered nervously. Why this police dog barking at a pregnant woman? Was it possible she was carrying something illegal? Was she a threat? No one had an answer. Officers rushed in, unsure whether the dog sensed danger, explosives, drugs, or something far worse. A nearby officer, tall and stern-faced, stepped forward. "Ma'am, we need to ask you a few questions," he said firmly. The woman's face turned pale. "I don't understand. I haven't done anything wrong," she said, her voice trembling as panic crept in. But the police dog wouldn't stop. He barked as if he sensed something no human eye could see. Moments later, officers uncovered a truth so terrifying, it left everyone in shock. Stay with us. This story will leave you speechless. Before we start, make sure to hit like and subscribe. And really, I'm curious. Where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. Morning light spilled through the massive glass panels of the city airport, turning the polished floors into shimmering mirrors as thousands of travelers rushed in every direction. Rolling suitcases clicked, boarding announcements echoed overhead, and the usual airport chaos blended into a familiar soundtrack of urgency and motion. But for Officer Mark Hale, this was just another day on duty, and beside him trotted the one partner he trusted more than anyone. Rex, the department's most reliable K-9. Rex's ears twitched as he scanned the crowd, his steps steady but alert. While Mark's eyes relied on training, Rex's instincts were sharper than any technology in the building. He could pick up the faintest chemical trace, the slightest shift in body language, the tiniest hint of danger. Today, however, Mark sensed something different about him. Rex was more focused, more intense, as if something in the air bothered him. "Easy, boy," Mark murmured, giving the leash a gentle pull. Rex didn't break stride, but his deep brown eyes continued sweeping the terminal as though searching for something only he could detect. Families hurried past, couples argued quietly about gates and boarding times, and exhausted travelers slumped in chairs with their phones pressed to their ears. Amid all this noise, Rex suddenly paused. His body stiffened, tail straightening, nose lifting. Mark noticed immediately. "What is it?" he whispered, scanning the direction Rex faced. At first, he saw nothing unusual, just more passengers, more bags, more hurried footsteps. Then she appeared. A pregnant woman walked slowly through the crowd, carrying 2 paper shopping bags in each hand. Her coat hung open just enough to reveal a clearly swollen belly beneath her white blouse. She wore sunglasses, even though they were indoors, and her steps were cautious, almost hesitant, as if she were trying not to draw attention despite being visibly hard to miss. But Mark wouldn't have given her a second thought, if it weren't for Rex. The K-9's ears sprang forward, his breath hitched. He took a single step toward her, nose flaring as if he had caught a scent that didn't belong. Mark tightened his grip. "Rex, heel." But Rex didn't heel. His entire posture shifted from relaxed patrol mode to rigid alertness. Something was wrong. Mark could see it in every muscle of the dog's body. The woman continued approaching, unaware of the storm about to break around her. Rex's claws scraped against the floor as he leaned forward, eyes locked on her, focused, unblinking, intense. Mark frowned. He had worked with Rex for 5 years, and he had never seen him react like this. The terminal's noise seemed to fade as Rex took another step forward, muscles tightening like coiled springs. His eyes stayed fixed on the pregnant woman, following her every move with unnerving precision. Mark felt the leash vibrate with tension. Rex wasn't merely alert. He was locked in. "Rex, what's going on with you today?" Mark muttered under his breath. The woman approached slowly, unaware of the invisible spotlight now on her. Her breathing looked slightly uneven, though Mark couldn't tell if it was because of her pregnancy or something else. She lifted the bags higher in her hands, trying to adjust the weight. Her sunglasses hid her eyes, making her unreadable, and that only made Rex more agitated. Without warning, Rex surged forward. His bark exploded through the terminal like a gunshot. Passengers jumped, gasping. A baby started crying. Travelers froze in their tracks, turning toward the source of the sudden commotion. "Rex! No!" Mark yanked the leash back, planting one knee into the floor to anchor himself, but the dog wouldn't budge. His paws scraped violently against the tiles as he lunged again, teeth bared, not in aggression, but in extreme urgency. People whispered instantly. Why is the dog barking at her? Is she carrying something dangerous? Oh my God, is that a security threat? The murmurs spread like wildfire. The woman stopped mid-step, startled. Why is he barking at me?" she stammered, clutching her belly protectively. Her face paled beneath her makeup. Rex growled deeper, the sound vibrating through his chest. He never behaved like this, never barked without reason. Mark knew this. Everyone in the department knew this. Rex wasn't just any K9, he was their most trustworthy dog. If he reacted, something was there. Another officer, Johnson, hurried. Over. "What's going on?" he asked, eyes darting between Rex and the woman. "I don't know," Mark replied, struggling to control the leash. "He locked onto her the moment she entered the terminal." Johnson frowned. "You think she's carrying something? Drugs? Explosives?" But this didn't feel like a typical alert. Rex wasn't signaling in his trained pattern. He wasn't pawing. He wasn't sitting. He only barked, loud, urgent, desperate, the kind of bark he used when something didn't just smell wrong. Something felt wrong. "Ma'am," Johnson said, taking a cautious step forward, "did you come into contact with any unusual substances today? Chemicals? Anything out of the ordinary?" The woman shook her head violently. No, I swear I didn't. I'm just here to catch my flight. Please, I don't understand what's going on." Rex barked again, louder, pulling harder toward her belly than her bags. Passengers began recording with their phones. Mark felt his pulse tick up. Every instinct inside him screamed that Rex wasn't wrong, but Mark had no idea what the dog was picking up. "Mark," Johnson whispered, leaning closer, "we need to intervene, now." Mark nodded, swallowing hard. "Ma'am," he said firmly, stepping forward, "please come with us for further screening." Rex growled again, eyes never leaving her, and the woman's hands were trembling. The woman's breath hitched as two more officers approached, forming a cautious semicircle around her. The crowd instinctively backed away, creating an open space in the middle of the terminal. All eyes were on her now, hundreds of strangers silently watching, waiting, judging. Mark held Rex firmly, but the dog's body was trembling with sharp, restless energy. His gaze never strayed from the woman's belly. Whatever he sensed was not in her bags. It was on her. "Ma'am," Officer Johnson repeated, voice steady but authoritative, "we need you to remain calm and answer a few questions." I'm trying," she stammered, swallowing hard. "But why is the dog acting like that? I haven't done anything wrong." Her voice cracked in fear, and tears pricked the corners of her eyes. The paper bags in her hands swayed slightly from the tremor running through her arms. Mark stepped closer, his expression stern but not unkind. "We understand you're frightened, but Rex doesn't make mistakes. If he senses something, we need to investigate." "Senses what?" she cried. "I'm pregnant. I'm not a criminal. I just bought food and a few things for my flight, that's all." Rex barked again, one sharp, piercing bark that made her flinch as if struck. Johnson exchanged a worried glance with Mark. "Look," he said gently, "we're not accusing you of anything. We just need to make sure you and everyone else are safe." Her chin wobbled. "I don't understand." A man from the crowd muttered loudly, "Check her. Something's off." Another whispered, "Maybe she's smuggling something." The woman's face flushed with humiliation. She turned her body slightly, as if shielding her belly from the stares. "Please, don't do this. Not here." Mark lowered his voice. "Then come with us. Privately." She hesitated, her breathing shallow. Her eyes darted from Rex to the officers, then to the watching crowd. Her feet shuffled backward, but there was nowhere to go. Panic flickered across her face. Panic Mark didn't yet understand. "Ma'am," he said softly but firmly, "we're escorting you to a screening room. You are not under arrest, but you must cooperate." The woman slowly nodded, her shoulders trembling. "Oh, okay. Okay, just please. Tell the dog to stop." Mark gave Rex a quiet command. Rex didn't stop. His growl softened for a moment, but his focus remained razor-sharp, his body rigid. The officers closed in gently but decisively, guiding her away from the terminal as the crowd's whispers followed like shadows. Mark took a steadying breath. Rex had never been wrong, and if he was reacting like this, something serious was hiding beneath the surface. The officers escorted the woman through a quiet corridor leading away from the bustling terminal. The farther they walked, the more her steps grew unsteady, as though fear itself was weighing down her legs. Mark stayed close behind, Rex at his side, the dog's low growls vibrating through the walls like distant thunder. They stopped in front of a private security screening room, a small, sterile space with bright lights, a metal examination table, and a single chair. The moment the door opened, Rex lunged forward again, pulling the leash taut. His teeth weren't bared in aggression, but in unshakable urgency. "Rex, enough!" Mark commanded, his voice firm. But even then, Rex continued whining, pushing against the threshold with all his strength. The woman flinched at the sound, gripping her bags tightly, knuckles pale. "Please," she whispered, her voice fragile. "Please tell him not to hurt me." "No one's going to hurt you," Officer Johnson said gently. "We just need to run a quick inspection." She nodded shakily and stepped inside. The door shut behind her with a soft click, muffling the outside noise. Inside, the atmosphere felt strangely tense, silent, yet heavy. A female officer approached the woman with a reassuring smile. "Ma'am, I'm Officer Claire. I'll be conducting your screening. Please place your bags on the table." The woman hesitated, then slowly set the bags down, her hands trembling. Claire opened the first one. A takeout bag filled with packaged sandwiches, juice bottles, and napkins. Ordinary. Completely ordinary. The second bag held folded clothes, small travel items, and a receipt. Again, nothing unusual. Claire looked at Mark through the glass panel in the door, raising an eyebrow. "Everything looks normal so far." But Rex didn't agree. Outside the room, he paced furiously, pawing at the door, whining louder, twisting his body as if trying to squeeze through the narrow gap under the frame. Mark tightened his grip on the leash but felt his own pulse rising. Rex never reacted like this over food or harmless belongings. Something else was triggering him. Inside, Claire moved closer to the pregnant woman. "Ma'am, do you have anything else on your person that might set off a trained K-9? The woman swallowed hard. No. Just me." She wrapped her arms protectively around her belly, too protectively. Claire's eyes narrowed slightly. "We'll need to conduct a handheld scanner check." The woman's breath quickened. "Is that necessary?" Outside, Rex suddenly released a sharp, frantic bark that echoed through the hallway. Mark stiffened. Rex wasn't signaling the bags. He wasn't signaling the clothes. He wasn't signaling anything she carried. He was signaling her. And whatever it was getting closer. Officer Claire lifted the handheld scanner, but before she could begin, the pregnant woman's shoulders slumped as if the weight of the world suddenly pressed down on her. Her breathing shifted, no longer steady, no longer controlled, but sharp and shallow, each inhale trembling with fear. "Ma'am." Claire stepped closer. "Are you feeling all right?" The woman opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Instead, a faint whimper escaped her throat. She clutched her stomach, not gently, but desperately, fingers digging through the fabric of her blouse. Claire's eyes widened. "Are you in pain?" I don't know," the woman whispered, glancing toward the door as if begging for an escape that didn't exist. Sweat collected along her hairline. "I just feel strange." Through the glass, Mark watched every movement with a growing knot in his stomach. Rex paced wildly, nails clicking against the floor, tail stiffened. He wasn't just alert, he was agitated, restless, distressed, as though the danger inside that room was escalating by the second. "Mark," Officer Johnson murmured beside him, "this isn't normal. Something's seriously off." Mark nodded without taking his eyes off Rex. He knows something we don't. Inside the room, Claire lowered the scanner. "Take a seat," she instructed gently. "Let's get you stable before we continue." The woman nodded unsteadily and sank into the chair, gripping the armrest to steady herself. Her legs trembled uncontrollably. Her breaths grew shorter, almost panting now. The room's bright lights reflected the sheen of sweat on her forehead. Claire knelt beside her. "Look at me. Are you experiencing cramping? Dizziness? Anything unusual?" "I'm just scared," the woman gasped. "I'm scared and I want to go home." Her voice cracked with a raw vulnerability that made Claire's expression soften. But Rex reacted differently. He suddenly snarled, loud, guttural, urgent. He slammed both front paws against the bottom of the door, claws scraping low and fierce as if he sensed something happening inside the woman's body, something invisible but dangerously real. Mark tightened his grip on the leash, but even he could barely hold Rex back now. "Easy," he commanded, but Rex whined in agony as though begging them to understand. Inside, the woman pressed her palm against her lower abdomen. "Something's wrong," she whispered, her voice quivering with fear. "I feel pressure. This isn't normal." Claire placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "We'll get medical support. Stay calm." The woman's eyes darted once more toward the door, where Rex continued scratching, barking, and whimpering like a dog watching danger unfold in slow motion. Claire leaned closer. "Did you eat anything unusual? Take any medications?" The woman shook her head, then suddenly froze, her face tightening in sharp discomfort. Claire immediately pressed the emergency call button. "We need paramedics in here, now." On the other side of the door, Rex let out a howl, a chilling sound Mark had only heard in life-or-death situations. Mark felt his chest tighten. This wasn't fear. This wasn't guilt. This wasn't nervousness. The woman was in real, escalating distress, and Rex was sensing it faster than anyone else. The moment Claire hit the emergency button, a shrill alarm pulsed through the hallway. Mark straightened instantly. Rex jumped, barking with a fierce urgency that reverberated against the walls. Something inside that room was escalating, and fast. Inside, the woman pressed both hands against her abdomen, her lips trembling as a sharp gasp tore from her throat. Her entire body tensed, shoulders rising, eyes wide with shock. "Ma'am!" Claire grabbed her by the arms. "Talk to me. What are you feeling?" "I don't know," she panted. "It hurts. Something's wrong." Before Claire could catch her balance, the woman's knees buckled. She collapsed sideways into the chair, her breathing rapid and shallow, face paling by the second. Claire immediately supported her. "Stay with me. You're okay. You're okay." But the woman wasn't okay. Outside the door, Rex erupted in frantic barks, throwing his full weight against the frame. The leash stretched so tight it seemed 1 second away from snapping. His eyes were wild, not with aggression but fear. Fear for someone in that room. "Mark, open the door," Johnson barked. Mark threw the door open just as 2 paramedics rushed down the hall. Rex lunged inside, but Mark held him back with sheer force. Still, Rex thrust his nose into the air, sniffing frantically, his entire body trembling with intense alarm. Claire stepped aside as the paramedics moved in. "She collapsed suddenly," she reported. "Severe abdominal pain, dizziness, and possible respiratory distress." The lead paramedic knelt beside the woman. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" She groaned, clutching her stomach tighter. "Please," she whispered, "help me. My baby." "We're here," the paramedic said calmly. "We need to check your vitals." Rex's barks softened into distressed whines, but he kept his eyes locked on her belly as if staring at the source of whatever danger he sensed. Mark swallowed hard. Why isn't he calming down? He's never acted like this. The paramedic placed the stethoscope on her abdomen, then stopped, his brow furrowed. "That's strange," he murmured. "What?" Claire asked sharply. "Her heartbeat is spiking, but—" He pressed again, listening carefully. "Her abdomen feels inconsistent." "Inconsistent how?" Johnson stepped forward, but the paramedic didn't answer immediately. He gently pressed again, slower this time, feeling different areas. The woman cried out in pain. He withdrew his hand, concern tightening his expression. "Something's happening internally. Possible rupture. We need to move her immediately." Rex let out another desperate whine, circling toward the woman until Mark held him back. The woman's eyes fluttered open weakly. "Please, I don't understand what's happening," she whispered, tears trailing down her cheeks. "I just want to go home." "You will," Claire assured her, "but you need medical attention now." The paramedics lifted her carefully onto a stretcher. She winced, gripping the rails with trembling fingers. "Let's go," the lead paramedic ordered. "She doesn't have much time." Rex barked again, loud, urgent, his instincts screaming louder than any machine or human could. Mark felt a cold shiver run down his spine. Whatever was happening inside her body, Rex sensed it, and it was getting worse. As the paramedics began checking the woman's vitals more thoroughly, Rex's behavior shifted from frantic to eerily precise. He stopped barking, but only for a moment. His nose shot upward, sniffing in rapid pulses. His eyes narrowed, locking onto the woman's midsection with razor-sharp intensity. "Mark," Claire murmured, watching him. "He's not reacting to her collapse. He's reacting to something else." "I know," Mark whispered back. "I just don't know what." Rex lowered his head and pressed his nose toward her belly again, whining softly but urgently. His tail was stiff, his fur slightly raised along his spine, an unmistakable sign of heightened alert. This wasn't fear, aggression, or confusion. This was detection. Pure, trained detection. The lead paramedic glanced at Rex uneasily. Why is he fixated on her like that? Mark shook his head. This isn't normal alert behavior. He's not signaling explosives or narcotics. This is something else. Rex suddenly stepped, sideways, circling the stretcher in tight, anxious loops. He sniffed the air near her abdomen, backing up as if overwhelmed, then surged forward again. His instincts were in overdrive. The woman's weak voice trembled. "Please, please get him away from me." But Rex refused to be pulled back. He planted his feet firmly, growling low, not threateningly, but intensely. Johnson frowned. "Mark, you've worked with him more than any of us. What is this?" Mark swallowed hard. This is him sensing an internal threat, something happening inside her body. The paramedic's eyes widened. Internal? Rex barked, one sharp, decisive bark that made every person in the room freeze. Then he did something he never did during false alarms. He sat, not obediently, not casually, but firmly, shoulders straight, body tense. A full, alert sit. "That's his highest warning signal," Mark said quietly. "He's telling us the danger is inside her, not around her." The woman burst into tears. "What danger? What is he sensing? I'm pregnant, not a threat." Claire reached for her hand, squeezing gently. "We know. He's not attacking you. He's trying to protect you." But the woman shook her head violently. "No, no. He's scaring me. Please, just stop him." Before anyone could respond, Rex stood again and let out a deep, urgent growl, pointed directly at her stomach. The paramedic stepped back, startled. "I've never seen a K9 react like that. Something is seriously off." Mark exhaled, his heart pounding. Whatever's happening to her body, he smelled it before she even felt it. Rex barked again, loud and decisive. Not out of hostility, but in a desperate attempt to warn them, and they were finally starting to understand that he was right. The paramedics exchanged uneasy glances as Rex's warning growl continued to vibrate through the small room. The woman lay trembling on the stretcher, tears streaking down her cheeks as panic overtook her. Her hands hovered protectively over her belly, as if she feared not the pain, but what the officers might find. Claire stepped closer, her voice steady but firm. "Ma'am, we need to take a closer look at your abdomen. Something isn't right." The woman shook her head, breath quickening. "No, no, please don't. I'm fine. I just need air. Just let me go." Rex barked again, one loud, commanding bark that silenced the entire room. Everyone jumped. Mark crouched beside his K9 partner, studying him with sharp eyes. "He's dialed in. Whatever this is, he's certain." The lead paramedic swallowed hard and placed his gloved hand gently against the woman's belly. The moment he pressed, she cried out in pain, sharp, involuntary, desperate. "Easy, easy," he soothed. "I'm not hurting you. I'm checking for abnormalities." But as he moved his fingers slightly, his expression changed. Confusion, then concern, then something much deeper, alarm. He lifted his hand, took a breath, and pressed again, more carefully this time. The firmness wasn't right. The temperature wasn't right. The contour wasn't right. He pressed a third time, and the room went silent. The paramedic turned toward the officers, voice low, controlled. "This doesn't feel like a natural pregnancy." Claire's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" The paramedic hesitated. "The abdominal wall is uneven. There's an unnatural rigidity beneath the skin, and I'm not detecting consistent fetal movement." Mark straightened. "Meaning what, exactly?" Before the paramedic could answer, Rex interrupted with a sudden lunge toward the woman's midsection, nose pushing forward as he inhaled deeply, fast, urgent, almost frantic. Mark tightened his grip, pulling him back. "Easy, boy." But Rex whined, scratching the floor, signaling harder than ever. The woman clenched her teeth, her voice trembling. "Please, please, don't touch me anymore. You don't understand." Johnson stepped forward, his tone sharpening. "Then help us understand. What's under your clothing? Is there something you want to tell us?" Her eyes darted between them. The officers, the paramedics, the dog. Her breaths came in sobs now, her chest rising in quick, panicked bursts. I can't," she whispered. "They'll hurt me if I say anything." Mark's voice softened. Who will hurt you?" But before she could respond, the paramedic gently lifted the edge of her blouse. And that's when he froze. Beneath the thin layer of fabric, the belly didn't look natural. The skin was taut, too taut. The shape was slightly uneven, and along one side, barely visible under the dim lighting, was a faint line, almost like a seam. "Claire," the paramedic said quietly, "get me a broader light." Claire flicked on the overhead examination lamp. The truth hit all of them at once. There was swelling, yes, but beneath it, something else, a hard outline, a concealed shell, not organic, not natural. The paramedic exhaled slowly. This isn't a normal pregnancy. Something is inside, something foreign. Rex barked sharply, pawing at the floor in agreement. The woman broke into sobs. "I didn't want to do this," she cried. "I didn't have a choice." Mark's stomach dropped. They weren't dealing with a medical emergency anymore. They were uncovering something hidden, something deliberately concealed beneath her fake pregnancy. And the nightmare was only just beginning. Claire steadied the examination lamp, angling the bright beam directly over the woman's stomach. The light revealed details none of them wanted to believe, details impossible to see under normal lighting. The surface was too smooth, too tight, too perfectly rounded, and that faint seam, running diagonally across her abdomen, became clearer, sharper, undeniable. Mark's breath stalled. "That's not skin." The woman shut her eyes as tears streamed down her cheeks. "Please, don't make me go through this." But Rex was relentless. He lunged forward again, barking directly at the seam, nose thrust forward, paw scraping the stretcher. His instincts were screaming the truth before anyone else dared say it aloud. Johnson stepped forward cautiously. "Ma'am, I'm asking you one last time. What are you carrying?" "I can't," she whispered. "They'll kill me." Mark softened his tone. "Not here. You're safe, but we need to know what's under that." The woman cried harder, her chest shaking with each breath. "You don't understand. This is bigger than me." The paramedic, wearing gloves, gently grasped the edge of the seam with 2 fingers. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said quietly. "I'm just checking." "No, no, stop," she cried, reaching down to block his hand. But Claire caught her wrists gently. "Ma'am, if something dangerous is inside, we need to remove it for your safety and your life." The woman froze, trembling violently. Then she exhaled, a long, broken sigh of defeat. "Fine," she whispered. "Do what you have to do." The paramedic nodded and lifted the blouse a little higher. With Claire's help, he carefully tugged on the seam, and what came next made every person in the room recoil. The entire belly shifted, not like a pregnant stomach, but like a shell, a hollow, detachable shell. The paramedic's eyes widened. "This is a prosthetic." Claire inhaled sharply. "A fake pregnancy?" The paramedic slid his fingers beneath the edge of the prosthetic. The woman winced, not from pain, but from shame. With a gentle, steady motion, he lifted the entire silicone belly upward, and it peeled away, revealing what lay beneath. A tightly strapped harness clung to her body, covered in small compartments, wired compartments, each one filled with elongated, cylindrical capsules wrapped in thermal insulation. Johnson's jaw dropped. "Is that smuggling tubes?" Mark's heart pounded. "This is an entire contraband rig." Rex barked furiously, pressing closer, sniffing each compartment as if verifying every single tube. The woman sobbed uncontrollably now, covering her face. "I didn't want to do it. They forced me. They said if I refused, they'd hurt my real baby at home." Claire placed a hand on her shoulder, her expression softening. "You should have told someone." "No one would have believed me," she whispered through tears. "They picked me because I already look like a mom. They said no one would suspect a pregnant woman." Mark looked at the prosthetic belly, astonished at the craftsmanship. It looked exactly like human skin, warm to the touch, weighted, designed to fool even trained officers. But not Rex. Never Rex. The paramedic examined one of the sealed tubes. These aren't normal smuggling containers. These are temperature-controlled. Whatever's inside, it's extremely valuable. Mark stepped back, realization settling like ice in his lungs. This wasn't just a desperate woman making a bad choice. This was a major trafficking operation, right under their noses, and if this woman was being used, others might be too. The room fell into a heavy silence, broken only by the woman's quiet sobs and Rex's tense, rhythmic breathing. The officers stared at the harness, its network of compartments, insulation layers, and tightly sealed capsules. Mark had seen sophisticated smuggling setups before, but nothing as elaborate, or as desperate, as this. The lead paramedic picked up one of the cylindrical tubes carefully. These aren't ordinary containers. Look at the lining. Thermal shielding, moisture protection. Whatever's inside needs precise conditions. Johnson leaned closer. Drugs? Mark shook his head slowly. If it were just drugs, Rex would have given a narcotics alert pattern. But he didn't. Rex's behavior wasn't matching any trained detection response. Instead, the dog was trembling, eyes sharp, ears pinned forward, nose twitching with intense sensitivity. He hovered over the tubes, sniffing each crevice, whining as if begging them to realize the danger hidden in plain sight. Mark knelt beside him. "What is it, boy? What are you sensing?" Rex pawed sharply at one specific compartment, the one closest to the woman's rib cage. His nails scratched the strap, claws digging as he pulled toward it again and again. "That one," Mark said quickly. "Open that one." Claire stepped forward but hesitated. "Are we sure it's safe?" Before Mark could respond, Rex barked, a loud, explosive command that sent adrenaline through everyone in the room. "All right," Johnson said, steadying himself. "Do it carefully." The paramedic used trauma shears to cut the strap holding the targeted compartment. He lifted it slowly, keeping it level. The insulation felt warm against his gloves, unnaturally warm, like it was protecting something delicate. Rex stepped back, still trembling, tail stiff. The paramedic unfastened the cap. A faint hiss escaped. Everyone froze. Claire's hand flew to her mouth. Was that gas? "No," the paramedic whispered, wide-eyed. "Pressure equalizing. There's something biological inside." The woman sobbed harder. "Please stop. You don't know what they made me carry." Mark forced his voice steady. "We're going to find out." The paramedic tilted the tube. A small transparent capsule slid out, filled with tiny sealed vials floating in a preservative solution. Each vial had printed labels and serial codes, not street drug markings, not chemical identifiers. Johnson squinted. "Are those human tissue samples?" "No," the paramedic said slowly, throat tightening. "These are DNA microcapsules, genetic material, illegal, biotech." Mark felt a chill crawl down his spine. "Biotech trafficking?" Claire exhaled sharply. "That could be worth millions on the black market." Rex barked again, a sharp warning. He nudged the remaining unopened compartments, his body language screaming urgency. "He's telling us there's more," Mark said. One by one, they opened additional tubes, each containing illegal genetic material, some marked with international lab identifiers, others untraceable. They weren't smuggling drugs, they were smuggling human futures, illegal DNA, stolen embryos, experimental tissue samples. The woman shook uncontrollably. They said no one would ever check. They said using a fake belly was safer than suitcases. Mark looked at Rex, who sat protectively between the woman and the tubes. "He didn't detect drugs," Mark whispered. "He detected life." Rex let out a soft whine. Confirmation. This was bigger than any of them imagined. And the operation behind it was far from small. The woman's breathing faltered as the truth lay exposed on the examination table. Rows of stolen genetic samples sealed inside insulated tubes. Her tears dripped onto the harness strap still clinging to her waist, each drop trembling with fear and regret. She lifted her hands slowly, as if surrendering to the weight of everything she'd been forced to carry. Claire knelt beside her. "You need to talk to us. We can't help you unless you tell us why you were smuggling this." The woman sniffed hard, her voice cracking. "Because they didn't give me a choice." Mark stepped closer, Rex still pressed protectively at his leg. "You said 'they' earlier. Who are you talking about?" Her lips shook violently as she tried to speak. "A group. They call themselves the Circle. They recruit desperate people. People like me, single mothers, women struggling. They know exactly who to target." Claire softened. "They used you." She nodded, miserably. "They found out I have a 6-year-old daughter. They threatened to take her, or worse. I was supposed to fly across the country and deliver this to a contact at the destination airport." Johnson folded his arms. "So this wasn't your idea?" "No," she cried, voice rising. I tried to back out, but they showed me pictures of my little girl walking home from school. They said if I didn't do this, if I told anyone, she'd disappear." Rex whined at the sound of her sobbing, glancing between her and the officers as if urging them to understand. Mark crouched, leveling his tone. "Why genetic material? Why not drugs?" "They said it was worth more," she whispered. "Labs, clinics, people overseas who pay anything for samples, embryos, DNA." She gripped the sides of the stretcher tight. "They told me I'd only have to do it once, just once, and we'd be free." Claire exchanged a grim look with Johnson. "This is human trafficking. Medical trafficking." The woman nodded again, choking on another sob. "I'm not a criminal, I swear. I just wanted to keep my daughter safe." Mark glanced at Rex, who had stopped growling and now sat calmly, eyes gentle but watchful. "You're not the only victim here," Mark said softly. "And you're not alone anymore." The woman's shoulders collapsed as relief and exhaustion washed over her. For the first time since this nightmare began, she felt safe enough to breathe. The room fell into tense silence as the woman's confession settled over the officers like a cold weight. Mark exchanged a sharp glance with Johnson. This wasn't a simple smuggling case anymore. This was an organized trafficking network operating right under their noses. Johnson stepped into the hallway, grabbing his radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 4. We need immediate airport lockdown on Gate C through Gate F. Possible organized trafficking operation. Repeat, lockdown needed now." Static. Crackled, then, "Copy. Unit 4. Lockdown initiating." Alarms sounded faintly through the corridor as security doors began sealing sections of the airport. Travelers murmured in confusion, flight attendants hurried to calm crowds, and officers rushed to their positions. Inside the screening room, Rex paced anxiously, still hyper-focused. Mark knew that look. The dog had the scent. Somewhere nearby, someone else from the Circle was close. Mark approached the woman again. "The person expecting the drop. Did they give you a name? A description?" She shook her head. No, I never met him. But they told me he'd watch me enter the security lane, and he'd signal me by adjusting his blue tie twice." Claire frowned. "Blue tie? That's not much." "It's enough," Mark said. Rex suddenly froze, nose shooting toward the hallway. His ears perked, his tail straightened. Then he bolted. "Rex!" Mark sprinted after him. The K-9 shot down the corridor, claws scraping against the polished floor, weaving through officers and paramedics like a guided missile. Mark followed at full speed, heart pounding. Rex skidded around a corner and into Terminal B, where the lockdown was just beginning. Passengers were being directed back, but one man fought against the flow, moving faster, head down. A man with a blue tie. Rex growled deep in his chest. "Hey!" Mark shouted. "Stop!" The man turned, eyes widening far too much for an innocent traveler. He bolted. Passengers screamed as the man shoved through them, sprinting toward an emergency exit door. "Johnson, cut him off at the west side," Mark yelled into his radio. Rex surged forward, chasing the man with explosive power. The suspect smashed into the emergency door, slamming the release bar. But Rex leaped before he could escape. The K-9 hit him in the side, knocking him hard to the floor. The man struggled, reaching for something in his jacket, but Mark was already there. "Don't move," Mark barked, pinning his wrist. Officers swarmed the scene in seconds. Inside the man's jacket they found a matching insulated case, identical to the woman's. Another delivery, another victim, another piece of the Circle's operation. Mark exhaled shakily, looking at Rex, who stood guard with a low growl still rumbling in his chest. "Good boy," he whispered. But deep down, Mark knew this was only the beginning. With the suspect pinned and disarmed, officers quickly snapped cuffs around his wrists. The man glared at Mark with cold defiance, breathing heavily from the chase. But Rex wasn't interested in him anymore. The K-9 kept sniffing the suspect's jacket, then the air around him, tail lifting with renewed alertness. Mark noticed immediately. "He's not done. He smells something else." Johnson patted down the man's pockets, pulling out a phone, locked, and a folded airport access map. Several areas were circled in red. "Looks like multiple pickup points," he muttered, but Rex was already moving. He tugged the leash sharply, dragging Mark toward the far end of Terminal B. The dog's pace intensified, quick, purposeful, laser-focused. "What is it, boy?" Mark whispered, letting Rex lead. Rex weaved through passengers, guided only by scent and instinct. He turned sharply toward a service hallway normally restricted to staff. Two officers swiped access cards, letting Mark and Rex slip inside. The hallway was dim, lined with storage doors and maintenance signs. Rex sniffed along the baseboards, then suddenly stiffened, ears locked forward, muscles taut. He growled, low and throaty. Mark raised his radio. "Possible suspects in service corridor. We need backup." Rex led him to a maintenance door. From behind it came faint voices, muffled, hurried. Johnson and Claire caught up just as Rex pawed at the door. Mark mouthed, "They're inside." Johnson nodded to the officers behind him. "Stack up." Rex backed away, vibrating with anticipation. On Johnson's signal, the officers kicked the door open. The scene inside exploded into motion. Two men jumped from their seats. A third dropped a backpack stuffed with insulated tubes identical to the ones on the woman's harness. A laptop showed delivery routes, coded messages, and a database of victims. "Police! Hands where we can see them!" One suspect lunged for the back exit. Rex launched like a bullet. He tackled the man mid-stride, knocking him to the ground. The suspect thrashed, but Rex held firm, growling until officers restrained him. Another man broke for the window, but Mark cut him off, slamming him against the wall. Johnson tackled the last one, trying to grab the laptop. Within seconds, the room was secured. Breathing heavily, Mark looked around. The insulated tubes, the forged documents, the victim profiles pinned to the wall. "This is their hub," Claire whispered. "We just shut down the whole operation." Rex sat proudly beside the subdued suspects, chest rising and falling from the chase, but eyes bright and alert. Mark knelt, rubbing the dog's neck. "You did it, buddy. You led us straight to them." Rex's tail thumped once against the floor. Not just a hero for the department, but the reason an entire trafficking network had fallen. Hours later, the chaos of the airport slowly settled into a fragile calm. The suspects had been arrested, the trafficking hub dismantled, and the insulated tubes secured as critical evidence. But for Mark, the real closure lay in the medical wing, where the woman, no longer wearing the heavy harness or the fake pregnancy shell, sat on a hospital bed with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. She looked smaller now, fragile, exhausted, but free. Claire stood beside her, filling out a final report. "The federal agents have spoken to you," she said softly. "You're not being charged. You're a victim in this operation." The woman nodded, tears welling again. "I never thought anyone would believe me," she whispered. I thought this was the end." Mark stepped forward, Rex walking proudly at his side. The moment the woman saw the K9, her breath caught. Her hand flew to her mouth as emotion rippled through her. "Rex," she whispered. He knew. He really knew something was wrong. Mark gave a soft smile. "He sensed danger before any of us could. You were in pain, terrified, and forced into something you never agreed to. He wasn't barking at you. He was barking for you." Rex approached the bed slowly, as if understanding her fragility. He placed his front paws gently against the edge and tilted his head, eyes soft and warm. The woman reached out, brushing her fingertips against his fur. "Thank you," she whispered, voice breaking. "You saved my life, and my daughter's future." Rex let out a quiet, almost tender whine, leaning into her touch. Mark watched the moment unfold, raw, human, and deeply grounding after everything they had faced. "You'll be placed under protective care," Claire assured her. "Your daughter, too. The circle won't be able to hurt you ever again." The woman exhaled with relief for the first time that day. "I can't believe it's finally over." Mark nodded. "It is. You're safe now." Rex stepped back and sat tall, his tail thumping softly against the hospital floor. The woman wiped her eyes. "Please, tell him he's my guardian angel." Mark smiled. He already knows. For the first time since the nightmare began, the woman allowed herself to breathe. A real breath, deep and steady. She was free. Her daughter was safe. And Rex had changed her life forever. 2 days later, the airport felt different. Not just quieter, but heavier with the memory of what almost slipped through its gates. Yet, for Officer Mark and Rex, there was a sense of victory carried in every step as they walked back, onto the polished floor of Terminal C. The media had already begun calling it the Airport Angel case. But Mark knew the truth. This wasn't about headlines or praise. It was about a dog who refused to ignore danger. It was about a woman who finally found safety. And it was about a child whose life would never again be threatened by the shadows of a criminal network. As Mark and Rex approached the security checkpoint, a familiar voice called out softly, "Officer Hale?" The woman was there, standing beside a federal agent, healthier now with light returning to her eyes. This time she wasn't trembling. She wasn't carrying a fake belly. She wasn't afraid. She held a small stuffed toy in her hands, something clearly meant for her daughter. Mark offered a reassuring smile. "How are you holding up?" She nodded, emotion swelling in her throat. "Better. They moved us to a safe location. My daughter keeps asking when she can meet the hero dog." Rex wagged, his tail proudly at the sound of his title. The woman knelt, holding the stuffed toy out toward him. "I don't have much, but I wanted to give him something from us." Rex sniffed the toy gently, then nudged his head into her palm, accepting her gratitude with quiet dignity. Mark felt warmth rise in his chest. Moments like this, moments when the world slowed long enough to recognize the heroes who couldn't speak, were rare. "You don't owe us anything," Mark said softly. "You were brave. You survived. And now you and your daughter get to start over." The woman stood, tears shimmering in her eyes. "Please, tell him again. He saved me. I'll never forget him." Rex lifted his head proudly, chest expanding with a deep, calm breath. Mark rested a hand on the dog's neck. "He knows. Trust me." As the woman walked away toward a safer future, Mark glanced down at his partner, the dog who had turned chaos into clarity, who had seen danger no human could detect, who had saved lives without hesitation. Rex looked back with bright, loyal eyes, and in that moment the message of the entire ordeal was clear. Heroes don't always wear badges. Sometimes they walk on four paws.